everybody. Welcome back to the second segment, episode 156. And we're going to talk about third quarter stats.
Excellent. Q3, in fact. Q3, the data that we have is both very large, so it's all of North Texas. We zero in, pull in Collin, and then go and look directly into Dallas. So it's a really great way to look, kind of see what trends are happening, who's stepping out of the norm. But overall, it is an interesting market, Jeff.
It really is. And we are so lucky that we work for the company that we do, because every quarter we get this really detailed, well put together report that we can send to our clients and customers and talk about here. And it's, this is just I think a labor of love between Travis Matthews running being over the a lot of the company, but certainly the financial part of it. And then Remington Reese and his team putting together this in such a great format. They actually break this down, and I think they do 13 different counties. And like you said, we're only going to talk about Dallas and Collin because that's really where most of our business ends up being.
Yep. So the first side that we'll take a look at is going to be the North Texas market as a whole, and that's a really large market. And you can see what we're going to be looking at is the same information for all three of these markets. So on the left-hand side, you can see the price ranges. They're going to be from 0 to 300,000, and then all the way up million plus. And Q3 for 2021 will be in the first column on the left. The middle column will be the Q3 2020, and finally it'll be the changes, so we can get to compare and see what's happening both with active, pending, and sold.
And I think there's a lot of data here, so I don't want to really go through every line of it, if that's okay with you. Okay,
No,
didn't think so.
let's do that.
But let's talk about the $300,000 to $750,000 price point. That is a kind of a good general range in the middle of the market, I think. And in Q3 of 2021, there were 9,478 homes that were active. There were 18,000 of those that were 18,000 that were pending. And then in the third quarter, there were almost 20,000 homes sold in 2021.
And I think in that category, if you look on the far right hand under the Q3 change active, 34% is the greatest change that any of these price categories saw, with 34%. And that is a lot, because what we see there is usually the entry level position. And I think that at this point, what we're seeing is there's a lot of competition right there in that price point, both with first-time home buyers and investors at this point.
I think one of the things that we're also seeing, and we'll probably see as we move on through this report, is the prices in general tend to be moving up. And so there are a number of homes that are worth $300,000 a year ago, and now they're $350,000. Therefore, they move out of that category into the category below.
Yep. And if you look in the 750 to 150 and the 1.5 million and above, there's a decrease in the activity of 13 to 14%, but there was an increase of 45 to 51% in the number of solds. And that is a squeeze on that market. That percentage right there will be the greatest percentage that we'll see in those two price points through the other two slides.
And jumping down to the bottom half of this slide, this presents the gray bars are the number of homes sold that year by year by year, and you could tell from 2015 to 2020 that the number of homes that were sold in a year just kind of continued to go up. And then we hit 2021, where the number of homes fell, but the average sold price in thousands went from 344 in 2020 to 410 in 2021.
That's amazing. And if you look a little bit further down, the average price per square foot in 2015 was $96 for all of North Texas. And in 2021, it is up to $188. And that is a substantial increase.
It really is. So let's break this down and jump into the two submarkets. We're going to look at the same data of information in both Collin and Dallas County. Again, let's focus on the $300,000 to $750,000 market. In the third quarter of 2021, there were 1,255 that were active, 3,771 that were pending, and 4,176 that were sold. Compare that directly, that same row across, in 2020, there were 1999 or 2,000 active listings in that price point. And then pending, there were 3799, about the same number. But then in 2020, there were fewer of those sold. I think what a part of that we're seeing is the activity in that Collin County market that really just continued to blossom because of all of the corporate relocation that was occurring there.
You also look at the 0 to 300,000, go all the way to the right-hand side in the active, and there was a change between 20 and 21 that was a decrease in 71% in that price point. If you also follow that across, that means there was 60% less pending and 65% fewer sold. If you compare that to the 1.5 million, there was a decrease in the 2 years by 12%, but an increase by 138%, and that is staggering. That 1.5 million market out there is exploding as we see it.
I think these are all open to interpretation of what's really going on. But one of the things that I think is the Collin County market traditionally hasn't been that high end of a market.
Correct.
But we are seeing more and more builders that are going out there because they can get decent sized lots. They can put the $2 million home on the lot and it's going to sell because there's industry that supports that type of buyer out there.
The other thing too is part of me wonders if the people that are in that 300,000, if they are homeowners that if they sold, yes, they would make great return on that money, but then where would they go? Because there has been such an uptick in those price points that I think it gets more and more difficult.
And as we drop down to the second half of that page, again, we're going to look at the gray bars, which indicate the number of homes sold each year as you go along. And you can see that 15 was great, 16 a little lower, 17 a little lower, 18 a little lower. But then in 19, we really began to see that whip back where they jumped to 1,625 homes. Then they jumped by to 2,002 homes in 2020. And then the number of homes fell back again in 2021, I think, again, just because of that lack of inventory.
Yep. And if you see on the average price per square foot, that first line there, in 2015, it was 112 in Collin County. And when you move over to 2021, it shot up to 191, and that is a 71% increase. One of the other things to kind of highlight is that in 2021, the months of inventory, typically 4 is healthy, they are showing 1.1, and my notes there say scary.
Let's move on to Dallas because I think this will be interesting to people as well. Again, we've got that, those two first price ranges that have the majority of the activity in it. It used to be that 300 and under was really the starter home number, and now that's grown to be 350 to 4, I would say.
Even 5 sometimes.
Yeah. Going again to the $300,000 to $750,000 range, in the third quarter of 2021, there were 1,736 of those homes that sold. But jump over to that second set of columns, which is the third quarter of 2020, and there were over 2,500 homes sold in the third quarter of 2020. And that's a 30% increase in the number of homes that were sold from, decrease, not increase, decrease between those two. And again, I track that to a lack of inventory.
But if you look at that exact same column, pulling that out, what makes it even more kind of like scratch your head is that 13.3% more homes sold in that exact price point. But there was less to sell. I mean, it is a big change. 1.5 million, there was down, if you look the far column, down 45% in active, down 6% in sales, but again, it was up. Only 3.2%, probably because there's so many more of those homes that get traded. One of the things kind of to point out, houses at this price point, a lot of times in Dallas, can be traded offline. So we may not have the data there to support a true picture of this.
That's true. All the homes that are sold in this report are ones that have gone through MLS, and there is about 5% of the market, give or take, that is sold outside of MLS.
Yep.
Let's drop down to the second half of that screen and look at the number of homes that were sold comparing 2015 all the way through to 2021. And it's that very similar pattern that we saw to the Collin County report. I again note that in 2020, there were about 2,700 homes that were sold in Dallas County in the third quarter, and that dropped in 2021 because just a lack of inventory, as you can see down toward the very bottom of that report, where it talks about days on market, where in 2015 we had 2.7 months of inventory, and it began to grow a bit. But then in 2020 and 2021, it dropped down pretty dramatically and is currently 1.6 months of inventory.
And of that 1.6, it looks like days on market is coming in right at 24, which is 20 days less than the previous year. And that is substantial. You'll also see the percentage of sold price to the list price ratio. Here in Dallas, we're looking at about 100%. So I think that is able to be balanced by the people who pay over and then the people who get a little bit less, but it's coming in right at 100.
Yeah, I would agree. So it's still a great time to buy a home.
Yeah.
If you have an interest in selling your home and making a move up, certainly reach out to us. We are happy to help you with that.
And just remember, we want to be your realtors for life.